Jim Lee's job as publisher of DC Comics, whatever that means in August 2020, his job is to go to the Hollywood Reporter and say that everything is fine. Yes, it's sad that they had to lose some people, but they're going to be a stronger company because of it. Everything's fine. These rumors you're hearing are ridiculous. There's great people who are in great positions and they're going to make great comics, and DC Comics is stronger than ever.
This goes out to the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all. What? Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. What? Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast with Patrick Brower and W. Dale Bush.
I just want to mention that I was not in a bad mood until you were telling me stories from today, and they were things that I have to then deal with after this podcast, and now I'm hot. Now I'm agitated.
Role reversal. I'm fine.
That's great. You got it all. You're like I'm your aggression sin eater.
I wasn't.
I just take it all away from you, and now I'm angry, and you're
now
like,
you have my powers too.
I'm absolved of my aggression.
I wasn't complaining to you.
You weren't.
I was just pointing out.
You were
an occurrence.
You were, but it was an occurrence
that we would not discuss.
That was
on this podcast.
That's frustrating to me,
and I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's a problem
you
that I
had
have to
to learn.
Solve now.
You had to know either way.
Yes.
I had my opening all set for this as well.
I'm sorry. You can go ahead and do it and just cut that other one out.
No.
I don't care. I don't care.
I was just going to say that when I was young, this is the time of year that we would refer to as the dog days of summer.
Because it was hot out?
Well, the last couple of weeks of August, school always started back like the last week of August. So the last couple days of summer where you could still be a kid and still play, but also the hotter days of the summer.
Sure.
And that's not the case anymore because we have ruined this planet and it's hot all the time now.
Yeah, or weirdly not hot when it's supposed to be, which is a different thing. Just a different way we ruined everything.
And these varying extremes. Charlie was in today. And he had mentioned he liked the heat, and I told him he was foolish to like it. And that is not the way summer should be. And he said he would rather have this than, minus 0 degrees and snow. And I said, I don't want that either.
Yeah, but we'll get both.
It's not one or the other.
Uh-huh. It's just which one are you getting when.
But he prefers the heat over the cold. And I prefer the cool. I'll say it, just the cool.
Yeah, which you're living in absolutely the wrong city for that because we don't really have much of a spring or fall. So those days are so limited in this area.
Now you've convinced me. I'm going to move. Good luck with the challengers in the future.
Thanks, dude.
Weirdly, you won't be able to use the bank accounts.
That's fine.
You'll...
We barely use them now. What's the difference?
You're a smart guy. You'll figure it out. You'll move along. But it was always the, get the last energy out of your system.
Sure.
You don't start dreading school until the last minute.
Sure.
And I find it really depressing to be in stores, general stores. What are they called? Like
supermarkets?
No, like your Targets and your Walmarts.
Big box store?
I guess, but I mean like a store that sells everything.
Department stores?
Yeah, department stores, I guess. Like, I always thought department stores were more, like, clothing-oriented.
They were.
Department stores.
I mean, the problem is, like, a thing like a Target or a Walmart, like...
is everything now.
Yeah, I mean, it
like,
has combined a lot of things.
Woolworths,
That's a department store.
Okay. Where all these stores have massive back-to-school displays where it's all the school supplies and new fashions and everything you'll need. And I remember... shopping for school supplies. I always liked doing it, but I also never got what I wanted, and I'd always be enthralled by the lunch boxes, and my mom would be like, you don't need a lunchbox.
You don't.
I mean, we took our lunches to school in bags with their names on them. Yeah. And as an adult, I bought a bunch of lunch boxes and got rid of all of them because I don't need lunch boxes. It's just the kind of situation where it was always, I want these super fancy folders. No, you don't need those. And I never did. The 49-cent cardboard folders were fine. But you just wanted, by the time I was in... getting off track here.
Sure.
By the time I was in college, I had one notebook that had, partitions for different classes.
Sure.
So I'm like, I'm not bringing a different spiral notebook and folder and textbook to each class. Like for all of my art history classes, my textbook was the book. I took all my notes in the book.
Sure, you bought it.
And I figured I'm just passing that on to the next person that gets to buy it.
Sure.
That would be easier. But I found myself in many Walmarts recently, and they all have these massive back-to-school sections.
Really do. Just these pallets of just like, here's 8,000 kinds of spiral notebook and 8,000 kinds of folders. And just aisles and aisles of all that stuff.
District 86, where I went to high school in the suburbs, they just yesterday announced that at least for the fall semester, it's all remote learning.
Yeah.
And I feel like that in itself is a reason to have less school supplies.
I would think, yeah. But who knows? I'm so obviously disconnected from how schooling works now because I haven't been in school for decades. And
I school you every day.
I don't have kids.
Every day.
I don't have kids that go to school, so I don't really... Like, I think it's interesting sometimes to talk to educators or parents about, like, what's going on with their kids and what's going on with their schools, but it's more just like a curiosity than anything where it's like, oh, I really have to understand that or I'm invested in it. Not really.
The one thing I do notice about most younger people today, that their handwriting is terrible.
It really is.
Because they don't write anything anymore. Everything is typing or texting.
Yeah.
And
their texting is atrocious, too.
College students whose handwriting is at a much lower level.
Sure.
I mean, I was in 6th grade and I stopped using cursive.
Uh-huh.
I had to get permission from my teachers, and they made me do a all-capital system, but large capitals as capitals, and then all the lowercase were just small capitals.
Okay.
I don't know why, but
why
that's the way I printed and still do to this day.
Sure.
But yeah, I got out of cursive in 6th grade because I asked my teacher saying, I don't want to write this way. And I didn't have to. So but before that, there were whole classes that just taught you cursive writing.
True.
Such a weird thing. Anyway, we're not here to talk about how I went to school. We're talking about the week in comics.
Yeah.
And I do want to not talk about comics and explain why I've been into so many Walmarts.
Okay.
And that's because I've been looking for the All Elite Wrestling action figures, the Unrivaled Series 1, which are only available at Walmarts. They're not a Walmart exclusives, but they're the only chain that carries them. And you and I have talked about that before, ever since we found out about that at C2E2 this year, that only they would carry it.
Yep, disappointing.
So the toys were due out a week ago or so Monday, and I started looking for those action figures because I want them.
Yeah. And when you say due out, I mean, they were heavily promoted as a specific Monday launching in Walmart's nationwide.
August 3rd.
Yeah.
In Monday, August 3rd.
Yeah.
Well, I have yet to find any. A quick jump to the end. I read Pro Wrestling Illustrated had or PW Insider had an article saying Walmarts are now limiting people to 2 figures per transaction.
Good.
Because of how
people are just buying cases.
No, but I mean 2 figures total.
That's less good. But,
yeah.
I mean, at least it's something. It means that, in theory, you could show up and still find 2 figures to buy.
So
currently, you're finding 0.
I know. You would only get Matt Jackson.
That's it.
You wouldn't. No. But I mean, of the Bucks.
No. I would specifically buy just half of a tag team to piss off somebody else.
Right.
Because someone's going to be like, I got to get both Young Bucks. Why are there only Knicks?
All I'm going to give Dal for Christmas is Nick Jackson and Brandy Rhodes.
Okay.
There you are. And they weren't out on the advertised date, and it turns out that all Walmarts are in the process of redoing all their toy sections, and a lot of places hadn't even gotten them yet. And it's rare that the toy industry has a day-and-date release.
Yeah.
Normally it's just, this quarter or whatever.
Yeah.
We have a guy who calls us almost every day looking for
Spider-Man vintage figures.
Yeah, and we'll only ever have those on a Thursday.
And even then, we will find out one day before we get them.
Right. But the point is, if you've already called after Thursday of a week, you don't need to call before the next Thursday. We're not going to know anymore.
Nope.
And By the way, Southern Hobby had a huge 4 pages of new Pop pre-orders today.
Those are the ones that I talked about with Garrett on the phone.
Yeah, and none of them were Critical Role.
He didn't ask about those.
Oh, I'm just saying.
Right, but you're right that it's weird that they're not on pre-order when they're on pre-order multiple other places.
Yeah.
Especially because those we would actually carry, as opposed to everything else where it's like, no man, we don't need the Wienermobile.
We don't need Punchy from Hawaiian Punch.
Nope.
I need to order all the Fortnite ones though, because that's still a thing, right? That's huge.
Not on the App Store.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah. That's why I mentioned it, because it was so topical. Mm-hmm. So this led to the toy issues I was having led to a much longer discussion that Dal and I had about how trying to be a toy buyer is so hard.
It's I mean, there's the collectible aspect, which is frustrating for toys as it is for comics, where there's people who, the second something is in demand or has a fan base that's excited, there's going to be people who are going to swoop in and buy as many of them as they can to drive the price up, and that super sucks. But the bigger problem is just, for toys, how unreliable distribution is in general, where, like, in general, Empire number 6 has a specific street date. You go into any comic shop nationwide that Wednesday, they're going to have it on the shelves, unless, the fraction of a percent that got shorted by the distributor had some problem with it. Over 99% of retailers that you go into are going to at least have stock.
Do you think there's any comic shop that wouldn't have, like, I'm not going to carry this one?
Right. And that's why I'm picking that one as an example. Like, there's lower tier stuff, obviously, where maybe a store isn't going to carry Ghost Spider for the shelf, or the Terrifics for the shelf, or Vengeance of Vampirella for the shelf, whatever. But
I appreciate you doing a Marvel, a DC, and an other publisher.
I wanted to go all over the place. I didn't want to make like I was calling out a specific publisher for having stuff that no one would want to carry. Every publisher has stuff that some store's not going to want to carry. But in general, the bigger stuff, the heavily advertised stuff, the kind of top of the market stuff, you can expect stores to have stocked it. Now, they may run out. They may sell out. But if you go on Wednesday, there's a pretty good chance you're going to be able to find it. What sucks with toys is that that's almost never the case. It used to be 1 or 2 toy lines a year, you knew the exact day they were coming out because it was tied to a movie. Star Wars toys were coming out a specific day because Hasbro coordinated their releases. Unified communications across all channels, you might say.
That doesn't happen.
To make sure that people knew the day they should go to the stores to go get the new Star Wars toys. Now, I mean, stuff would leak out, and maybe, some stores would carry more than others, but in general, if your Target usually carried Star Wars toys, you could go into your Target that day and find the new Star Wars toys. But that's, again, 1 or 2 things a year. Usually, like, all the Marvel Legends stuff, it just shows up on shelves whenever. Like, there's general street dates that Hasbro tries to enforce as far as, like, do not sell it before this date. But it's all over the place. Like, your Target could get it a month earlier and decide to sell it, or they could get it 6 weeks later and then start selling it. Like, there's no sense of, like, oh, this is when toys are available. Like, as someone who follows plastic robot toys, in the plastic robot toy fandom, there will be sighting reports of like, oh, this toy was found at this Target in California. Now you can start checking your stores. It doesn't mean your store's going to have it, but officially now it has been released to a store. Therefore, now everyone can start hunting for it. But again,
I have those same lines, those chain lines of people telling me about things.
Yeah,
but for M&M flavors and Oreo flavors,
which is helpful,
and it's mainly
definitely helpful. But it's the same thing for toys as for the candies, where it's not like there's a specific date. It's just like whenever, and how many places are going to get, and what they're going to stock, and what they're going to put on the shelves. It's so random that it's intensely frustrating, and I think it drives a lot of collectors just to ordering online through specialty vendors, because at least you can pre-order it. You can lock it in.
Even hey, that's what I did.
But even pre-ordering stuff through like Walmart.com, which you can do, a lot of people have been frustrated the last few weeks because they've pre-ordered stuff, they've gotten a confirmation, and then they've gotten a deconfirmation from Walmart saying, by the way, we canceled your pre-order.
Wow.
For whatever reason.
What was that? What lines was that for?
It was
like G.I. Joe? Or...
I think it was some exclusive stuff that they were doing where people had pre-ordered. Like, there was a specific date that all this stuff went up online and people pre-ordered Transformers or G.I. Joe or Marvel Legends or whatever exclusive things that Walmart was doing, and then found out, oh no, it's been canceled. And some of it was even for mass release things, like different Transformers that were not exclusive to Walmart, but Walmart was offering pre-orders on, and then that pre-order got canceled.
Yeah, Walmart does not offer the AEW action figures on their website.
No, super frustrating.
Which is obnoxiously annoying.
But yeah, it's weird to me that you can have something as big as action figures and also have zero control as to when it's released. Like, again, like you said, sometime in a quarter.
Yeah.
All of the stuff that we've done through Southern Hobby for Hasbro stuff, it's like I have no idea when it's coming in. I've been gratified that some of the fan channel stuff, like the Transformers, which ones do we get? Rotor Storm and Exhaust and somebody else. Those we got within the general window that every other retailer was getting them. So it's not like we got them 2 months later like we usually do. But there's a ton of stuff that, again, just no idea when it's going to come in. No idea when those Spider-Man vintage figures are going to come in.
We had
ordered them as soon as they were offered to us. Didn't matter.
We had a club member today ask, can you do subscriptions for Transformers? I'm like, yeah, of course. Any of the series you want. Oh, yeah, because one came out this Tuesday. I'm like, oh, this week was My Little Pony Transformers. What? Yeah, that was the most recent. No, the one from Tuesday was... And he goes, look on this one, I go, wait, are you talking about the action figures? He's like, yeah. Like, oh, I like them at the comics. The answer to that is maybe. Why don't you email us what you're looking for and I'll see. But if it's something that we've already ordered, maybe not.
Well, I mean, I've cautioned basically anybody who's wanted to do Hasbro pre-orders with us not to do that. I'm even at a point where I'm thinking about doing my Hasbro pre-orders through not challengers because I'm tired of ordering stuff and just having it be, I don't know when it's going to come in. There's a wave of
You've missed out on stuff. There are things you've ordered that we've just never been able to get.
Yep. There was a wave of Transformers figures, the Series 1 for the Earthrise Deluxes, that we've never got. I ordered a set from Big Bad Toy Store 6 weeks ago because I was tired of waiting for it. And in that 6 weeks, we have not gotten the figures from our pre-order. And again, pre-ordered them as soon as they were offered. As soon as they were offered, and it still doesn't matter because it's just like no idea when they're going to show up. Wave 2 is already hitting stores.
Yeah, with the AEW figures, since I ordered them online, but I waited until I couldn't find them in the stores, I'm on back order 2, so I won't get them for a few months.
Yeah, it's such a nightmare. And I mean, that's before we even start talking about things like overseas toys and stuff that isn't released to America and whatever. I dislike it a lot. It's definitely got a lot of frustration built into it. That
it's just good to know that any level of fandom I have, or any, not level, but any subject of fandom I have, will have the same type of anger and heartbreak and frustration no matter what.
Yeah,
all different reasons, but still the same levels.
No, but just in general, trying to own anything for a fandom is a hassle. It's an aggravation, for sure. Like, if I was just a fan of, like, watching stuff on Netflix, no big deal. You just watch stuff on Netflix. I like the show. I'm going to watch the show. Instead, it's like, oh, I want to own a piece of this thing that I feel strongly about. Oh, someone's going to take advantage of that. There's going to be some lever somewhere in that process that's going to make you aggravated. It's never simple. And no one can make it simple because, again, just the idea of it being a physical good means there's a limited amount of them that can be produced on a timeline, and that means someone somewhere is going to take advantage of that and try and make money off of it, and that's going to screw you, basically. Like, it's bad enough that, like, Jazzwares can't get figures to Walmarts and Walmarts can't seem to get them on the shelves, but it's even worse where even if they could do that, it wouldn't matter because people were just buying up every single one they could find so they could flip them online for $40 or $50. Or I don't even know how much they're selling them for.
I haven't looked any of them up because I don't want to know.
Yeah. No, and it's the same thing for everything. Like, whatever figure you can't find, part of the reason you can't find it is because people are buying them up as fast as they can find them and selling them at a premium online while there is still a premium to be made off of them. It's so dumb. I hate it so much. I long for the days I didn't care about plastic anything.
Well, in my trips to Walmarts, it's been suburban ones and city ones, and you accompanied me to the Walmart in the city over on Diversey and, I don't know, Kedzie, Costner, one of those Ks.
One of those.
Kimball? It wasn't Kimball.
No.
And I have to say that for the duration of this pandemic, that was easily the worst experience in public.
Yeah, it was bad. It was a bad
that
scene.
I've had.
Yeah.
And you had an even worse time because you just left.
Yeah, I did. Near the end, we were standing in line for checkout, and the thing
to not buy toys.
Yeah, the thing I've explained to a few people is the checkout was specifically bad because while they had 6-foot markings on the floor to let people know where they should stand for social distancing, everybody who was in line was like a party of like 3 to 7 people. And that means within 6 feet, you're fitting a cart and 3 to 7 people, which means everyone's right up against each other. Like, the 6 feet was not nearly enough for the checkout line. So just standing in line there waiting because somebody at the front of the line was having some problem where they were clearly expecting to pay a different amount than they were being charged for, and a manager had to come over and they were showing their phone to somebody, and it was just like, Jesus Christ, like, this is the worst place you could be in a pandemic. It was bad. I did not like it.
While you were talking, a press release just came in from Boom Studios, and I thought, it's 4:30 right now in California on a Friday. Why put out a press release now? I mean, unless it's about you leaving a distributor or... no, it's just a generic...
Yeah,
regular...
I mean, I didn't get one. Like, I got the ones earlier today that were the, hey, Slaughterhouse 5 PDF, hey, we're doing reprints.
Oh, I'm sure you're going to get it any second, because it's a reprint email.
Okay.
I mean, I saw it on the screen as
I figured.
As you were talking, but it's like, this is... Are you trying to get to have people just miss that or not care about it? I don't know. 24
We're
hour
talking
cycle.
about it.
Who knows? Yeah, that's true, but we're not talking about the specific subject matter. So I was going to segue from the Walmart story into masks.
Okay.
And we've been requiring face masks this whole time.
Yes.
And we still will for, I don't know, maybe a year from now. Who
Yeah,
knows?
I mean, certainly until the science advises people that it is unnecessary to wear masks, which, again, probably about a year or so.
But that exact thing you just said, science advises, this week there have been some studies released that show you the effectiveness of different types of masks.
Yep.
And the two least effective masks are bandanas
Okay.
and gaiters.
Yeesh.
Yes. Gaiters, it makes sense because they're stretchable, and I think if you can stretch the fabric, you're stretching the
Probably.
holes through. But these are through lots of different tests, and
Yeah.
I didn't go into all the clinical reasons, but we had somebody send us studies, and I'd seen them myself before that.
Yep.
So now whenever someone comes into the store wearing either one of those, I get a little more anxious.
Sure.
Like,
One of the other ones is that I think there was a study done that if your mask has a vent in it,
it also doesn't help,
you might as well not be wearing it.
Yep,
And it's
I
just
read
like,
that as
oh,
well.
Seen a lot of those.
So all of those things make me say, okay.
Yeah.
And what makes it even more personally annoying to me is, in my car, my emergency, in case I've forgotten a mask, is an Alzheimer's gaiter. I personally spent a lot of time hand sewing Velcro into a couple of bandanas to have bandana masks.
Yeah.
I have an AEW wrestling gaiter on order from 1 Hour Tees. And just today, I got charged from Big Bad Toy Store for 3 different superhero gaiters I ordered way back in May.
Yeah. Sorry.
They're finally coming out. It's like, oh, I'm getting them the week I find out these are worthless.
These are largely ineffective.
Yeah, and 2 of them are gifts.
Oh.
So this is just like, oh man, nothing. These are no good.
Pretty much.
But like seriously, now that you know the ineffectiveness of certain types, like it's not like we can say to somebody, hey, you can't wear that mask.
Yeah, that mask isn't good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
But I mean, personally, are you going to feel a little more anxious when someone's in, or?
I don't know. I mean, I feel anxious every time someone comes into the store, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like, we've seen a lot of adhering to the letter, if not the spirit, of mask rules, where it's like, yes, you're wearing a mask, but you're really not wearing it right, or I don't know if that mask is sufficient, or whatever. So again, it's like, there is no... Like, the safest thing is to let no one in, and we're not doing that. So it's about mitigating risk, not eliminating it.
Our very, very nice and very personable window washer was in today, and he had on a mask, but he's a very chatty guy, and the more he talks, it just keeps falling down off his nose.
Yeah.
Just falling off his nose. It's like, you're not helping this.
Nope.
But, he's wearing a mask, and he's trying to be safe. He just... And I've seen... that happen a lot, and some people like catch it right away, other people don't. Most people at Walmart did not care.
No, they didn't.
A lot of employees no mask.
No.
But anyway, we're not talking about Walmart again. But yeah, the masks, it's
so really what Patrick's trying to say is, if anyone sees the AEW figures at a Walmart, please message him over social media.
I have them on order, so
but you'd like them. If you saw them now, you'd buy them now.
I 100% would buy them now. Yes.
So what's the difference?
Yes, because I don't want people to go out of their way. I don't want.
I'm not asking anyone to go out of their way. I'm asking if people are at Walmart in the toy aisle and they see AEW Unrivaled Series 1 action figures, maybe let us know.
Well, I'll say this: if you see Kenny Omega,
Everyone but Brandy.
Chris Jericho, definitely
Cody?
grab one. No, definitely
You don't-
grab one.
what-
Excuse me, I'm talking.
Okay.
I didn't mean that to be as harsh as it was. I meant I'm giving my list of what I want.
Okay.
Kenny Omega, Chris Jericho, definitely buy one or both of those if you see those. The Young Bucks, sure, why not? But Cody and Brandy, no. I definitely don't need duplicates of those.
You don't need those in a hurry?
Yeah, I'm not a huge Cody fan.
Is it
He's
the
got
neck tattoo?
He's got good. Oh,
Does the
neck
toy
tattoo's
have the neck
awful.
tattoo?
No, because the toy was made before the neck tattoo.
There you go, then. Get that one, because every future one's going to have the neck tattoo.
Probably.
I can't remember if the variant has the neck tattoo.
I don't know. But yeah, I definitely would not want extras of everything.
But there you go. Le Champion and Kenny Omega
I believe it's pronounced Le Champion.
are buy on site.
However, you're
going to have 6 of these
That's
as
right.
of the next episode.
We'll have to wait for the next episode to say thanks. Stop doing it.
Worst problems to have.
For sure.
Kenny's Omega.
For sure. But I mean, how many of our people will be in Walmarts this week?
I don't know, man.
Who knows? I'm just saying. I'm saying I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But I personally am done looking in Walmarts.
Well, you're done going out of your way to go to Walmart. Are you saying you wouldn't, like, when you're in the suburbs on Sunday?
No, but going to a Walmart in the suburbs is still out of my way.
Is it?
Yeah, there's no close Walmart. I'm still making a trip to Walmart.
Okay, well, I thought there were Walmarts that were nearby where you have family in the suburbs.
Well, still within like a 10 or 15 minute drive extra.
Sure. And that's too much?
Now it is, yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't then.
Okay.
Also, it's Walmart, you know? It's like shopping on Amazon.
Yeah, sure. I can see that.
They don't need my money. I would rather pay a little extra and let a website... I mean, this is so counterproductive, but I feel that pro wrestling figures... Actually, I don't know if that's the right website, but the...
Ringside Collectibles.
RingsideCollectibles.com is the underdog versus Walmart.
It better aligns with your values?
Yeah. Yes. I had a segue that I've forgotten.
Sorry. We were talking about masks.
Yeah.
And then I interrupted with...
No, that's fine.
People should look for AEW figures from Patrick.
But just the... I mean... Yeah, I think we talked last week or week before about how many different masks we have, and I've still ordered more this week.
Yep. I think I'm pretty full up. I got...
Dal's Power Pack masks came in.
I got 4 Power Pack masks that Patrick helped design under my direction. They came in very fast, and I do like them. They're a little tight on the face, but it's still pretty comfortable.
Just gotta loosen them up.
And I have all of my Kamen Rider masks, and I think...
How many is that? How many Kamen Riders is that? I mean...
5 or 6, I don't remember. So, I mean, across those, I probably have like 10 masks, not counting Challengers masks.
Sure.
And that's fine. I think it's enough for one pandemic.
Would you ever wear the Power Pack ones in the store?
Oh, probably not. That's like wearing like a t-shirt or something. And I wouldn't do that either.
Yeah, I'm okay wearing comic branded masks in the store.
I'm not saying it's a store
and
rule.
that's all
I'm
I
just
do.
saying what I'm comfortable
yeah, no,
with.
I know. And I'm saying what I am.
Sure.
Like, I'm not going to wear a Le Champion mask in the store.
No.
Or an Alzheimer's mask, or a Kiss mask.
Sure.
Or an Anne Boleyn mask.
But a Grimjack mask you would?
In theory, yes, but I probably won't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like how that mask looks on my face, although, that being said, I may wear the one that I made for wintertime.
Okay.
Then.
Sure.
And I think the gaiters would be something I would wear in winter when walking to work.
Sure.
Like it's...
When you're already social distancing and outside.
Yeah, and it's more for like, oh, it's a layer of protection against the cold.
Sure.
So then they may still have, or a scarf, who knows?
Scarves are good too.
It's hard to tell. You know what? It's really hard to tell.
It is.
So I don't know. I think that's pretty much all there is in the world of comics to talk about
it's
today.
slow
Oh,
news
you know
week.
what? There is one other thing.
What's that?
I didn't realize that there's a new Sweet Tooth series coming out.
Yeah, Sweet Tooth: The Return, which is both a sequel and a retelling. They're kind of coy about what that means exactly.
I heard it's something like told from the other side.
I don't know. I mean, as someone who did not get very far in Sweet Tooth, some of the specificity of the pitch was lost on me, but in general it sounded like they were trying to do something where it's like, not quite a sequel, not quite a redo. It's like, alright, whatever.
For as many projects and ideas as Jeff Lemire has, I wonder if this is purely related to the upcoming show.
Oh, absolutely. Oh,
Yeah.
man. Yes. That would not shock me whatsoever. Yeah. Yeah, no, that was no doubt in my mind.
Gotcha. All right, so I check that off. Sweet Tooth. Yeah, I think we're good. Do you have anything
Thanks
else?
for listening, everybody.
Yeah. From this point on, everything we're discussing is highly confidential. No. Not to be used against us in a court. No. Conjecture. Speculation.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about DC comic books, and we're going to talk about the various changes that have gone on to DC this week. We're recording this on Friday. The news broke on Monday, but the news broke in a very we're hearing reports sort of way. Some stuff got confirmed, and Jim Lee did an interview today with the Hollywood Reporter.
Did you read it?
I did.
Okay.
Where
I read it very quickly.
Certain other details were confirmed, and he tried to answer some questions. But in general, we don't know a lot of details. This happened Monday, and people were kind of already messaging us saying, like, what do you guys think, and what are you guys going to say about it? And it's like, at the time, it was like, I mean, I don't know anything. After a few days, some stuff became a little bit more clear and a little bit more finalized. But in general, everything we're talking about is going to be very, like, from what we've heard, like, take that as the prefix of literally every sentence. And also a suffix, but that's subject to change.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
So like, amend every sentence with those two things, and you'll get a better idea of how seriously to take what we're saying. Not that you should ever take what we're saying seriously. But this one, more than most things, most topics, is very up for grabs. The thing we do know, though, is that Warner Media has a new CEO, and that CEO is formerly an HBO Max guy, and basically said, we are now in the HBO Max business. That is the point of Warner Media. So a lot of changes were made to sort of reposition them as a company that has at its pillar, its main element of creativity and business, their streaming service, HBO Max. Additionally, because of the coronavirus and the pandemic and a lot of problems that you have with a media company where you can't release or make media, a lot of cutbacks and layoffs, specifically for DC Comics. The number that was going around was 20% of their staff was let go, but let go in a very weird California labor law way where if you're going to do that much of a cut, you have to give people 60 days, and I think DC is giving them 90 days.
Yeah, so basically they still have 3 months.
Yeah.
How well would you do your job if you knew that you only had 3 months left?
Oh, very poorly.
Yeah.
Probably very poorly, which maybe doesn't speak much to my work ethic, but in general, if I knew that I had just been let go and they were asking me to do 2 to 3 months more work, I would not be very motivated to do a good job. A lot of the stuff that was being mentioned as far as who was being laid off was something that we'll get into what it means in a minute, but it was a lot of higher level people. Bob Harris, their editor-in-chief, let go. Mark Doyle, the head of Black Label, let go. Brian Cunningham, let go. I can't remember a few, definitely a few other people in marketing and in sales. Again, higher level people. This is not like we let go of the assistant editors. This was the people who basically make the decisions on what kind of comics get made at DC were the ones let go.
Yeah.
And that means something different than just normal layoffs. DC Collectibles, which was DC Direct and then became DC Direct again, shut down entirely. So if you were waiting for like the Batman Adventures figures, probably not coming out now. Definitely good news for the variety of distributors who were just named as the exclusive distributors of DC Direct.
Yep.
I'm sure they feel great about doing all those negotiations to find out now they are carrying nothing. That's probably time well spent for companies like Entertainment Earth. But yeah, so a lot of this was, what does this mean for DC as a publisher of comic books? Jim Lee did an interview today, and he went into some details. And I read it.
Before you go any further,
Yeah.
have you ever read an interview with Jim Lee since he's been an executive
So the last 20 years.
that you didn't feel was just the company line? Like, do you ever feel like Jim Lee is saying something he wants to say?
So here's the thing with the Jim Lee, the Hollywood Reporter interview that I was going to get to, but we'll get to it right now. It's all PR horseshit.
Yeah.
I don't put any more stock into what Jim Lee is saying in the Hollywood Reporter than I do the various rumors coming out on places like The Beat and Bleeding Cool. In fact, I put less stock in what Jim Lee is saying. Because, I mean, look, Jim Lee's job as publisher of DC Comics, whatever that means in August 2020, his job is to go to the Hollywood Reporter and say that everything is fine. Yes, it's sad that they had to lose some people, but they're going to be a stronger company because of it. Everything's fine. These rumors you're hearing are ridiculous. There's great people who are in great positions and they're going to make great comics, and DC Comics is stronger than ever. And that's his job. Like, his job is not to go to the Hollywood Reporter and go, holy shit, the people who run this company do not care about comic books at all.
It was a massacre, and I lost some good friends, and I don't know what this company is doing.
I don't know. Like, he's not going to go to the Hollywood Reporter and go, I don't know why they fired Mark Doyle. That seems stupid to me. He's not going to say that. Not if he wants to keep his job. And he clearly does.
Which is weird. I mean, I'm sure he doesn't want to draw comics anymore, but that dude could get a job drawing comics anywhere.
Well, that's the thing. Like, he does draw comics for DC. Like, he does a lot of illustrations for DC, either for charity or for himself, or for
variant covers
for branding or whatever. So it's like, some places have speculated with a reduction in his responsibilities as publisher, he might end up doing more art for more divisions of DC, where they need, we're going to promote this Black Adam movie, so do a Dwayne Johnson as Black Adam drawing.
I did hear that one of his new responsibilities is more or less explaining what the properties are to the other departments.
Yeah, which was one of his responsibilities before, but it sounds like he's doing less of the kind of nuts and bolts of publishing and more being a liaison to different divisions to be like, hey, here's how we would tell a Batman story. But that's all like nonsense, because for the most part, and we'll get to this in a little bit, but when they're doing adaptations at DC, I don't think in general they give two shits what the comics publishing side is doing. I guess we can talk about that right now. Just to the flow of conversation. One of the things that comes out a lot, and he brings it up, is that of course Warner Media is going to keep around DC because DC is the one that's creating the IP that then gets turned into movies and TV shows and cartoons and video games and action figure lines and everything else. And that's true to a degree, but the specifics of it kind of don't make DC feel that valuable, because when you look at what Warner Media is exploiting from DC, can you name one thing that DC has created in the last 25 years as a comics publisher that has become a valuable part of multimedia exploitation?
Harley Quinn.
Harley Quinn was created on the TV show. Can you think of one thing that comics publishing has created in the last 25 years that has gone on to be a large part of their multimedia exploitation of DC? The biggest things
Harley
they
Quinn
have...
in the comics.
The biggest things they have, which has... like, even when you talk about things like that, like, oh, this character was in the comics, and now they're in a cartoon or a movie or a TV show, they've also been adapted to a degree that doesn't make me feel like when Silencer shows up on Arrow, I don't think the Arrow producers want to make something that is the comic version of Silencer. They want a couple attributes, and then they're going to spin their own thing into it.
Yeah.
So the idea of, like, oh, you created this character, you did 5 to 10% of the work. And the people who are doing the movie or the TV show or the cartoon or the action figure or the video game are going to do their own 90% because that's their job. That's what they want to do. Their job is not to, like, put your comic book on a screen. It's not like different executives in different divisions at Warner Media are waiting outside, Jim Lee or Mark Doyle's door every week, biting their fingernails, anxious to see what new character they're going to get created that they can go turn into a movie. That stuff just goes into a pot, and maybe they draw something out of that pot at some point, which is one of the elements of all of the Punchline stuff that makes me so frustrated, is the idea that, like, well, they've created this character, now she's going to be in a movie. She's one of, like, 1,500 Batman characters that could theoretically show up in something someday, but you know who's going to be at the top of the list? Batman, Joker, Penguin, Riddler. Same ones as always. Occasionally you get, like, a Ra's al Ghul or a Talia or a Bane who breaks through. But think about how many other characters have been created for the Batman comics that have gone completely unutilized. And that's what makes the idea of, DC's protected because they create the IP that becomes billion-dollar movies is like, how many books do you have to publish in a year for how many years to get even one Batman?
Yeah.
80 years of publishing, and they're still making Batman movies. Does that seem like a good investment? Especially when you've already created Batman. Like, you have Batman and Superman and Shazam and Green Lantern and the Justice League and Aquaman and Wonder Woman and Harley Quinn and blah, blah, blah. There is almost no reason to keep making things if you have 80 years worth of this stuff that you still haven't done everything with. Like, I don't think DC makes a good case for itself if its case is we need to publish. I mean, what are, even at a reduced production level, you're talking about publishing like 1,000 comic books a year indefinitely for decades to maybe get like one thing. And again, the first thing you point to is Harley Quinn. She was a cartoon character.
Yeah.
They've done things with her in the comic, but she was created in the cartoon. They didn't need anything. There was not one thing from the comic books where they're like, here's the hench person we want for the Joker. So they created their own, and it's like, by DC's own admission, like the fourth most successful character they have.
Yet can't maintain a series.
No, and like that again does not speak great things for the comics line. If Harley Quinn is, a character who's been in multiple films, and yet as a comic they're canceling it again.
Yeah.
Aquaman made it like what again, like $1 billion? That book's canceled. How many Teen Titans cartoons have there been? And movies, and that book's canceled. Like, these are all things where it's like, none of this makes a good case for you as like an IP farm. If anything, it shines a light on, you don't need any more budget. You don't need any more money if the only thing you have to offer a company is creating and maintaining IP. Irrelevant. No one's reading it. Who cares? So that part of it, that defense does not hold a lot of water with me anymore based on the current landscape. I mean, you start making Aztec movies, I'm singing a different tune. Then clearly someone at DC is like, we've got to make movies out of all these characters. So keep making new ones, sure. But if you've got nothing from the last 25 years, and even then, like, I think you could probably make a case for maybe Young Justice because they made a few cartoons off of that. But that cartoon's done.
Yeah. It's a good cartoon.
Comic got canceled again, too. I mean...
Wait, the new one?
Yeah. Part of the cancellations in the November catalog.
Oh, wow.
Young Justice done. Teen Titans done. Suicide Squad done.
Aw, Suicide Squad was so good.
So here's the thing where it's just like, I don't know about the messaging on this. Suicide Squad over with 11. Tom Taylor said, hey, it was always a maxi series.
Oh.
It's weird because...
11's a weird number.
Also, I know Rorschach is a maxi series because they said number 1 was number 1 of 12.
Yeah.
I don't know that canceling at 11 and then going, we only ever planned on 11. That was never clear to anybody. Doesn't sound like it was, a planned cancellation, but okay, sure. Tom Taylor will get more work. Tom Taylor's a great writer.
Yep.
But when you're canceling the Suicide Squad comic, you're announcing your cancellation several days after it has just been announced that the studio that made the Arkham games is making a Suicide Squad game, and before the Suicide Squad movie is going to have its big, like, cast Zoom thing on DC Fandom. Like, all of this speaks to me of a company that doesn't really need to be publishing comics to support the IP of its larger company.
Well, the Suicide Squad comic doesn't have Batman in it, so there was no real reason to keep it going.
I guess. There was another thing from Jim Lee's interview that cracked me up, where he was asked about the distribution, and his answer was, of course, that it's going great.
It exceeded their wildest expectations.
And how did
it's doing so great.
How did he denote that the book that exceeded his expectations? What book did he point to say that this is how well it's doing?
Oh, I don't know if I caught that.
Batman 3 Jokers moved over 300,000 copies, which, asterisk, you did a bunch of variant schemes that probably pumped a bunch more covers into the market that are maybe successful.
300,000 is a huge letdown for that book.
Yeah, that's the second asterisk is like, with all of that, you still only made 300,000 copies? Like, that's not...
Yeah, I mean...
But here's the thing about that specifically...
We personally fell for are participating in one of their schemes for that book.
Yeah. You have a thing where you've set the floor at what you're expecting stores to carry at around 150 copies. So if you only manage 300,000 in, an industry that has several thousand stores, I mean, that's not great, dude.
Also, how do you point to any book and say that's a success of the new distribution scheme?
Here's what I love. Well, I guess because the orders closed during it, I don't know.
Okay.
And also, because you can cherry pick, and I'm sure there's a bunch of books that went down, but that one went up.
But I'm saying, like, that went up from what?
0.
Right.
I mean, it's an arbitrary number to pick, for sure. Like, to say 300,000, and that's great. Like, 300,000 is good for the industry. But for that book, right now,
it's not like we had orders at Diamond that got canceled,
Right.
and then got filled. Like, oh, there's even more.
Actually, I think we technically did have orders at Diamond, but I don't know what they were. But and he didn't specify
No, I don't-
that it went up a percentage.
We hadn't ever ordered it yet.
Well, I mean, we have orders in Comic Suite.
Okay,
So, I mean, they were placed in some way.
sure. But also, I forgot now. Specifically related to the Three Jokers, and it's. Do you feel that they're worried about it because FOC closed, but then one, maybe both of the new distributors specifically sent out an email saying, hey, we know orders have closed for this. Go ahead and order. There's still plenty more.
Maybe. I mean, they might have overprinted. Who knows?
But that's not a thing that has ever been done realistically from a
distributor saying you can order more, there's extra?
Yeah.
No,
Like-
but I mean, I don't think Diamond would care to do that unless DC specifically directed them to do so.
Okay.
So either DC specifically directed Lunar and UCS to do that, or Lunar and UCS are doing whatever they want. Which, I mean, they're
feel like
new
that's not the
distributors.
case.
That's fine. I bring up the Three Jokers thing because I think it's hilarious to point to that book as a huge success when you fire the editor who was behind that book.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing about all of the firings that makes me the most nervous and the most concerned about what DC as a company is about now. Because you fired Mark Doyle, and one of the few things as a comic shop I can point to for DC successes is Black Label. Black Label is huge as far as the direct market goes, and firing that guy is super important to look at, because what you're saying then is that it doesn't matter. Sales don't matter. Sales were not what these firings were about. It's not like they looked at the company and said, how do we make it a better version of itself? It is specifically someone at the top saying, we are remaking DC into what we want it to be. And what they're saying when you fire Mark Doyle is Black Label is not relevant to our interests. As a company, as a publishing arm of Warner Media, mature readers' superhero content and non-superhero mature readers' content is not the identity of DC Comics going forward.
I have read in one of the many things I've read about this week that Black Label will only exist as a branding for graphic novels. Like
They just reprinted everything, so I hope so.
Like they'll still
They
have
have a lot of copies of All-Star Superman with DC Black Label on the spine.
that'll still be a thing, but there'll be no more Black Label books. So I wonder what'll like if the whole Sandman universe line goes back to just being DC.
Well, most of those are probably going to get canceled anyway.
No, that's
I mean, that's the thing. I would think any ongoing series like Hellblazer's canceled in the new catalog.
Is it?
Yeah. Hill House was basically done.
Yeah.
Plunge, I think, has one more to go, and nothing has been announced as far as continuing that. Young Animal has nothing. Yeah, that just leaves the Sandman Library stuff, and Hellblazer's canceled. Dreaming is a miniseries.
Hellblazer was the one of those books that sold well for us.
Yeah. Probably not, nationwide.
Yeah.
We have more Hellblazer fans than we do.
Sure, but all the rest of those books were club only for us.
Pretty much. I mean, we're trying out the new Dreaming one, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's definitely worrying for the direct market when some stuff is going to get canceled because of low sales. Like, they cut 20% of their staff, and that means they can publish, at best, 80% of the product they used to publish. Probably a lot less. Most of those editors were responsible for multiple titles. And people move up the ranks, for sure. There are 2 new people as editor-in-chief, but at the same time, like, there's a lot less people underneath them, and that's going to mean that there's less books they can sort of take care of. So more stuff is going to get cut. And when you take away Black Label, I don't know that DC's current publishing model has a lot to recommend it.
No.
The stuff that sells great is, the Black Label and Black Label adjacent stuff. That's what gets people excited. People are excited about Rorschach. They love Strange Adventures. I don't think Death Metal falls under the Black Label brand.
No, but it feels like it should.
Yeah, it might as well. It's that aesthetic, for sure. So what's left becomes things where it's like, I don't know that your monthly Justice League comic is that exciting to people. And Wonder Woman sells well, but it doesn't sell as well as Dead Earth.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, all of 6 months to a year ago, this is what we were praising DC for. Was all of their special project stuff was what was exciting in the market. That was the stuff that people were responding to. And people who don't even read DC Comics, that was the stuff they were adding to their subscriptions. That was the stuff they were picking up. And now DC has basically said, that's not the market we want anymore. And, I mean, that's pretty scary. That is a scary thing, to see them just not even based on a sales level, just as an identity. They're like, we don't want to publish those sort of comics. And that sucks, man. That super sucks.
That would be like us saying, no, we don't like red.
I mean, it's the equivalent of...
It's not. I just thought that was a weird thing that
Sure.
we would say.
The analogy I would make is, it would basically be like if we said, you know what, we like Sidekicks. We love what Sidekicks does. We're just going to do Sidekicks. The rest of the graphic novels, it's not like we're going to throw them in the garbage, but we're not going to restock them. We're going to let them sell out. We're going to give them less space and less space and less space and expand Sidekicks. And it's like, it's not like the other books sell badly and Sidekicks sells great. We're not basing this on finances. We're just saying, we don't want to do that, so we're pushing that part that is profitable away in favor of this part that we feel better about and that we'd like to do more with. Which at the same time, like to bring that analogy back to DC, you fired Bobby Chase, who was the head of your Young Readers line.
Yeah.
Like, you promoted somebody else who was beneath Bobby Chase to that level, and putting her and Marie Javins, who was doing digital.
Lisa Wells?
I can't remember the name of the woman who was brought.
Lisa Willis?
I don't remember.
I think it's Lisa Willis.
But regardless, it's the two people who are your editor-in-chiefs for your comics publishing are basically digital and Young Readers. And that is, I mean, those are, without making a value judgment, that is a different identity for DC Comics than what they're doing right now.
Well, one of the things that Jim Lee said toward the end of the article was that their physical publishing will be the best of their digital releases.
I don't remember that line specifically, so I don't know the context for that.
He said that, of course, we're still going to be publishing comics. We're going to do, like, literally what I just said, that we're going to put out a lot of things digitally, and the best of them will get printed in comics.
Yeah, which I guess gets into the larger question that people were having is, what does this mean for DC Comics going forward? And Jim Lee specifically said, take, again, this for what it's worth, that they are definitely a comics publisher, and that's not going away, and they are still going to publish comics.
Remember, they were publishing comics for 80 years, and he hopes that they're going to do it for 80 more years.
Sure. One of the
from an article a couple, whatever ago.
Yeah, one of the things that bothered me was that there was a question that the Hollywood Reporter used, and it's such a softball for him to use as a blanket denial and a kind of dismissal of a lot of theories, because Hollywood Reporter picked the dumbest theory and served that up to him as like, oh, we're hearing that you're just going to do graphic novels and that Marvel's going to make them for you. And he's like, that's ridiculous. And it's like, well, yeah, that specific theory is ridiculous, but there's a bunch of other theories going around that hold a lot more weight.
Speaking of theories, Dal, you had three of your own.
So basically, like, this was the thing where when you're firing so much of your editorial staff and you have people at the top who want DC Comics as a brand to be something different than what it is, when you have a company that is saying, we are a streaming company, and that streaming company does not need to or want to necessarily be a publisher, it means, what do you do with the DC characters? What becomes of DC as comic books? And there's kind of three things that can happen. And they're not exclusive. These are things that you could do one, and then a year from now, do the other. So the three things you can do is basically, the first one is kind of what they're doing right now, according to Jim Lee, which is basically nothing different. There will be a reduction in their output.
Yeah, just they're the same, but less.
Yeah. They had 20% cuts, and what probably ended up happening at a much higher level is DC is operating under a much thinner budget. And that means that their ability to pay creators to publish a certain number of books is more constrained. If DC was publishing 20 books a week, in about 6 months, you're probably going to see them publishing 15 books a week, or 12 books a week, or 10 books a week. Already in November, you're seeing them cut a bunch of ongoing series. So that's option one, is basically, DC is DC. Some stuff will slowly run out the clock. Rorschach just got announced. Rorschach's not going anywhere. Hellblazer Rise and Fall isn't going anywhere. Strange Adventures is going to finish. All that stuff.
I just wonder if Hellblazer or Strange Adventures will... Strange Adventures, I expect, will still be Black Label all the way through, but if Rorschach is suddenly just DC Comics.
I mean, in the new solicits, it still had the Black Label logo on it.
You know what they need?
What's that, Patrick?
A new logo.
Oh, finally. So, option one is nothing really changes. Batman comics keep coming out, Superman comics keep coming out, whatever. Slight reduction in the line, maybe a different focus. But for the foreseeable future, it is just business as usual, but less of that business. Option two, widespread changes to the way DC does their publishing, specifically a cessation of single-issue comics. Single issues come out digitally, are then reprinted in graphic novels. So print comics are just graphic novels, original or trade paperbacks, but just graphic novels. The entire DC line starts to resemble something like their Young Readers line, where maybe you get 3 or 4 books a month, not, 10 to 12 books
A week, yeah.
So a lot less of everything, a much more thinned down line. The projects that come out are maybe, a few Batman graphic novels a year. At the time, I would have expected Black Label to be kind of what the line ended up looking like, where things are more prestige, adult-oriented projects, but with DC kind of signaling that the Black Label is not a thing they feel strongly about anymore. I don't know what you publish. I mean, maybe it is just like kids' comics, where it's just teen and younger reader-oriented graphic novels, just trying to fit into whatever model Scholastic has shown the way for. Like, that's it. Maybe. The third thing, and the one that certainly is the most controversial and maybe the least likely, but the one that I think eventually is what they'll end up in.
I've been saying this for a very long time.
You've been advocating for a very long time, too. Just licensing the characters out. DC, as a publisher, doesn't exist. A few executives handle the oversight of DC characters at other publishers. The company I think they're most likely to land up in, if this happens in the next 12 to 24 months, is Boom. Boom's a company that has done a pretty stellar job with different licenses. They're in Burbank, so being able to negotiate with DC and have that sort of relationship is probably a huge mark in their favor. They've worked with companies like Hasbro and 20th Century Fox.
Yeah. They could do it.
Yeah, they work with a lot of different companies.
They are currently working with Tom Taylor. They are currently working with
James Tynion.
James Tynion, yeah.
Yeah, so I think eventually that's where they'll go. I think this is maybe... My theory is that all of this is a winding down process. I don't think Warner Brothers is looking to, or Warner Media is looking to, right now, this week, shutter the company. But I think they have an eye on more of DC as an additive part of Warner Media than its own specific identity. And they're going to give them a lot less room to operate. But yeah, in the short term, I mean, DC Comics are still coming out this week, They're still making Batman comics.
I just remember back in 2018 when this Warner's was bought
by AT&T.
And
everyone's like, hey, you know what AT&T does when they buy companies?
But other people were like, oh, they've got so much money, they won't even notice. Like, DC will get to operate how they've been doing it all along. And that immediately wasn't true.
Yeah, people always trot that out. DC Comics is basically an accounting error. What's the difference? And it's like, no, that's what makes them vulnerable. Is that they don't have the protection of, we're making you billions of dollars a year. You can point to other divisions and go, we help them make billions of dollars a year. But all it takes is one person at the top going, okay, but what did you do specifically? And they start to vanish.
Yeah.
A lot of their protection goes away. Certainly it's sounding like more and more people are getting involved with DC that do not have the sort of institutional memory that will protect DC Comics. Jim Lee didn't mention this person by name, but there's a new person coming in to basically do the nuts and bolts part of the publishing job, not the,
not the creative,
not the high level creative view, but the boots on the ground. How are we putting the books together? What are we paying for? Sort of thing. That is someone from esports. They are not someone from comics, and they probably have a much different mandate than Jim Lee does as far as what is best for DC Comics.
I do remember every time somebody from outside the industry has come to a higher level, especially within DC Comics, it doesn't work well.
I mean, Dan DiDio was there for decades. Wait, what?
Yeah, he's yeah. I mean, I was going to say he's the exception that proves the rule, but
is he?
Is he though? He's a guy who had intimate knowledge of comics ahead of time. I'm talking about people that come in.
That's true.
Cold.
Yeah, people
and
who
he
are
wouldn't
just,
have stayed
I'm an
there
executive.
for
I'm
2
there to do my
decades
job.
if he didn't know what was happening.
That's true. So yeah, in general, we don't know what's going to happen with DC, and anything we're saying is just a guess based on our own biases.
But at this point, we're not surprised by anything.
No.
Some people in marketing were let go. People that we've known for decades are still there. Mm-hmm. As far as I know, I haven't seen a full list. But, I mean, I immediately reached out to one person I know, and our conversation was brief, and mainly my end was mainly about AEW wrestling toys. Mm-hmm. Go figure. It's like they're on my mind or something. Yeah. They are still employed there. So who knows what will happen next with DC, but I'm going to shift to another topic of a thing that a lot of people don't know a lot about, and that is why was I mainly asking people to waste a whole bunch of their time this week clicking a button on the internet.
Finally, internet button.
And that is a result of us working with the publisher Bad Idea. We've talked about Bad Idea in this podcast in the past.
Yeah.
And their first book, ENIAC, was scheduled to come out on May 6th, but obviously was postponed because of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not going to publish anything until this button gets pushed 1 billion times.
What are they up to?
I don't know.
Okay.
And this button came out of nowhere and took over their company and is demanding their subservience.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd asked people to film a little vignette of you saying "click it" over and over, and I did, and they used it in a collage that they put together, but with like hundreds of people, so like you barely see me.
Sure.
However, I was able to reuse that same footage for a push to click the button. And there's the to recap, Bad Idea is a publisher that is letting 100 stores sell their books first. You can only get them from them. We're the only Chicago store that is going to have their books, one of the only stores in Illinois at all. And this week there was this button cup where it was which store could get the button pushed the most. And the way it was set up was the first day the stores were randomly put into teams of 25, so you had 4 teams. And each team had a designated time period to where the button needed to be pushed. And then the winning team of those 25 retailers would be split into the individual components and face off against each other for the rest of the week. And coincidentally, Monday and Tuesday... I'm sorry, that wasn't true. Monday was 4 teams. Tuesday it was 2 teams. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday were individual stores. So the big team competitions, we were in Team 1, and Team 1 won both days. Now, the weird thing about that was the times scheduled for the button clicking coincided with a lengthy dentist appointment I had on Monday, and Tuesday when I was at the warehouse picking up the books for the week. So that is basically that chunk of time was I was not that helpful, although I did get a couple of minutes in on Tuesday afternoon. Then it broke down into store versus store, and the way it worked was each store is given a set time period, and all the clicks of the button in that time period count toward that store. And that is when I was participating heavily. Mm-hmm. And we won our first round, and then we won our second round, and then we were down to the final 8. We got beat real bad by Space Cadets Collection from Texas.
Yep.
We had 180,000 clicks to their 600,000 clicks. The grand champions, today the finals happened, and it was Brainy Singh and Enjoy Comics versus Jen King and Space Cadets Collection.
Okay.
Enjoy managed 6.5 million clicks.
It seems like a lot of clicks.
In their time period.
Seems like a lot.
Space Cadets managed 8.5 million.
It's too many.
Now, I don't know if that was the entirety of their clicks for the whole thing, but that is how it just showed at the end.
That's a lot.
So the team that beat us won it all.
Sure.
Which I guess is what you want.
I guess.
Normally.
Sure. You don't want to lose to a loser.
Honestly, I don't even know what the purpose of the button cup was, aside from for it to get a lot more clips. Like I don't know
promotion.
I don't know what the winning store gets. Every participating store will get some original button sketches by a bunch of different Bad Idea talent.
Okay.
And the gimmick of that is just a circle.
It's just a button.
Yeah, it's just a little circle.
Yeah.
Sometimes some people add a dimension or whatnot.
Okay.
And so I participated, and I had a lot of Challenger fans and friends who were participating, and I thank you all for your time, your diligence, and your clicking. Don Cardenas found out that just because you have your headphones in, your AirPods in, when you're clicking the phone still dings as he was walking around Target making a million clicks. So, and I thought, like, all right, well, we lost. That's it. It's fine. Only it was pointed out to us after the fact that there's strong evidence that there was a conspiracy against us specifically.
Conspirators.
Because
Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, was right. Conspirators.
What did Aubrey do to us? Because we voiced public support for Ramon Villalobos,
Uh-huh.
who was clearly being threatened by the button.
Okay.
And because of his strong ties to us, all of these things happened to us as soon as we publicly supported him.
Okay.
And it looks like there is a request for a recount or re-releasing the numbers.
Wow.
Or something. All I know is that I wanted to state this all publicly, so if anything happens to Ramon, we all know who to point fingers at.
Okay. The button?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. He called it Button Coup. I, of course, called it Button Gate.
Sure.
Because that's what you do nowadays.
It's a go-to. Everything's great.
It's Button Gate. So I don't know where that is at, but that was literally the last thing I did at the store before I came here.
Okay.
Because I signed onto Twitter and saw I had over a very large number of mentions.
I see.
So there. So congratulations, Jen, but it looks like your victory is tainted.
Yeah.
But you know it isn't tainted? This podcast. Because it's fresh and exciting and wholesome and over. Thanks for listening.
Keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. Like Challengers Comics on Facebook, follow @Challengers on Twitter, and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.